All right.
How this works.
I was gonna hold up, like actually have the books to like hold up in front of the camera, but you've got them in front of you, so you can point.
I can hold them up and be like, and this one, and then there's this one, and I put words in that one too.
Oh, good. All right. Now I'm getting some. I see it. I see you're just blue. I'm sky blue, but I hear both of you. So all right. So we're getting some comments here.
Well, everybody says yes, you are blue. So I'm sorry, you're just so blue.
Sorry, that was my dog running around.
I'm glad that I don't have a cat down here just shrieking bloody murder in my ear. This is what happens every time. It's just, I'm like, shut the fuck up. Shut up. Go on. Get.
Our cat isn't too bad. Our dog doesn't usually make noise, but her nails are loud on the floor. And my husband just took her out, so then she comes inside and she zooms around the house for a minute.
You got a tap dancing dog at all times. I like it.
That's right. She does. We call it tappies when she has to go out. Instead of like a bell, some people hang on their door to like let their owners know. She just taps on the tile, which our whole house is tile, so it's just her running around in circles.
Oh man.
Other than that, she's pretty quiet. So now that we've got some people on here, looks like we've got 11 viewers.
Looks like it. And I was trying to figure out what this little pin thing was. I was like, all right, I got a little silhouette. I'm going to assume that's people. And the other thing are how many likes, thumbs up, and stuff. Okay, well, that's all cool. Hey, you know what? That actually might work if you just do the side by side with the different books as we talk about them. You can just throw that up there.
Okay, cool. I only have 3.
It's blue anyway, so it's a nice backdrop. It's nice, calm, like powder blue.
Good.
So which one do you want to get into?
I'm trying to figure out which one is best. Well, I'm going to ask you where you want to start. Do you want to start with the first one that you shared with us?
I'm looking at the screen and I'm looking at me in real life. I'm like, all right, so if that one's over here, the other one must be over here. Yay, mirrored. So Tales from an Ex-Husband, that would technically be my first book ever. And we can go into that. So I kind of sat down and I had a buddy of mine, David, who through I'd say a small period of time, a couple of months, we were discussing things like my ex-wife was just bonkers. And everybody says that, oh, my ex-husband, my ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, whatever, is just nuts. I am here to let you know that this is their leader. So I would just tell him these stories. Like, for instance, obviously, we're not together anymore, or it would be called Tales from a Husband. She ended up having many boyfriends in many area codes, zip codes, and states. One of which happened to be from south of the border. Well, getting to know like who was who and what was what, his family was very traditional. Like, you have to be Hispanic to date my son type of deal. And one of our conversations / arguments, I was like, so how does that even work? I mean, they do know you're full-blooded Italian, right? And she looked at me with the straightest face and said, oh, I converted. You converted to Mexican? That's not how this works. So just stuff like that. It's just, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg for some of the stories that I get into. I usually give that because obviously the relationship didn't work out and there's a lot of infidelity and other crazy stuff that goes on. But just to give you a taste of just some of the things that came up, it's not like the normal, like, oh, she's evil and I'm going to point the finger at her and let you know that she's bad. I mean, this is just from other people that have said stuff. You kind of go through this roller coaster ride that I literally went on for 11 years. We started dating in high school and it just went downhill from there until I got into the Army and I was able to actually sit in Iraq and look at my life and go, wow, man, I'm making really bad choices. And then eventually made my way to obviously the ultimate divorce. But just the ride that you go on, you're just up and down. Because my friend's mom even said, he's like, my mom read the book and every chapter completion, she wanted to hug you and hit you. So I wrote it because me and David would kind of chat about it. And he's just like, man, she's just crazy. This is nuts. Because I guess he had a bad relationship or two. I mean, who hasn't? But he's just like, wow, this is fascinating. Keep going. But he unfortunately took his life over the summer 2 years ago. And I was like, man, I should probably have written the book, because David did suggest. He's like, man, you got to put this in a book. People will love this story. So I was like, all right, man, I got you. And I sat down at the end of November last year, not 2019, but 2018, because it's now a new year. 3 months in now, right? So 2018, I sat down and started throwing pen to paper in a figurative manner on the keyboard, and just had to go back to just where I was, this is almost 20 years ago that this whole ordeal started. I had to think back 20 years ago. And the hardest part was not just, well, she's a mean so-and-so. I had to actually go with, all right, so in the beginning, I didn't hate her. Where was I mentally, physically, spiritually, and everything in between at that point? So it was, that stirred up a lot of memories, a lot of emotions, a lot of stuff that I never forgot about it, but I think I just kind of put it in a box and tucked it off to the side and didn't want to think about it, and had to bring all of that up. And just, yeah, it was kind of rough, but I got it out there. But that wasn't, honestly, this is the book that not to say I don't want to be known for, but I just wanted, I feel like I had to get it out there.
Yeah.
So,
and
it had to be.
It was probably pretty rough, but also cathartic to get it out again, and to have it out more than just having discussed it with your friend. I do like how I know you've got a lot of dedications in the front. I also really appreciate
more dedications than anyone else in the world.
No, it's good.
Record.
The preface of, this is your story and your site and your side of things, but not done in a way that it's like defensive necessarily. What is that bird?
Oh yeah. Sorry, it had something like fluffy on its foot, and it's been bothering me this whole time. Like I've been like gently
really?
picking at it, and then I was just like, "That's it, I'm pulling it off."
Just do it. But the beginning, your preface alone is pretty. even you say, I'm going to read a quick line. What comes as a surprise is how much of an idiot I was. That's why I appreciate this. And when I first met you and was reading this, you're right. It's not very finger pointy. It's not very like shame on her. It's not very.
I'm not here to tell you she's a bad human being. I'll let you figure that out for yourself by the time you get to the last chapter. Yeah. I'm not here to be like, and these are all the bad things, because I really do go through the ups and downs.
Yeah. One thing that I'm just noticing, this is random. Oh, somebody said not defensive, frustrating. I'm not sure what that's in reference to exactly. I'm not sure. I probably said something, but the one thing that I noticed is I have a copy here, the one that I have signed.
No one can see.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But versus the one that's on the screen, we had talked a little bit about the binary. I realized my binary runs top to bottom, and your image knocking it on down.
Yeah, I have. So if I do it I have 2 iterations of it. I tried to keep everything kind of the same, because I hate when I read an ebook and it's got a better cover than the paperback. Well, that'll never sort itself out. There we go. I just hate reading, like, even the audiobooks. Sometimes they get like that little tiny square is a really, really bomb image, and you're just like, oh, why couldn't that be the cover? So I tried to keep consistency across all 3 platforms. The problem is because even like the audiobook, the square is like this itty bitty big, versus like a full size, 6x9 cover that I get to use. I couldn't include the binary because once I got the text in there, it just boggled it all up. So in the full paperback, it actually goes vertically. In the ebook, it goes horizontally, and it's non-existent for the audiobook. But everything else is still kind of there. Like, it's got the same heart, but it's just slight differences. I tried to not do that for every other book that I'll ever do, because it's personally, it drives me nuts. I like consistency.
I hear you. Sorry to point out something that's annoying.
No, it's all good. I mean, there's a method to my madness, and it's little nuances, like things that I've done in my books too, that, it's things that bug me in other publications that I have read, where I'm just like, what are you doing? Yeah. I'm going to do better than that. So I try to not do that, but in some cases your hands are tied by, the source that you have it on. So that's kind of why it's just different directions and whatnot.
So, someone said, there had to be something good for you to have married her.
Probably
not that you want to say on here, maybe.
I mean, it's chapter 2 or 3-ish by the time. Oh, there's all the chat. Oh my! I know. Gosh.
That's
everybody.
Can you see me now?
I can see blue.
It's still blue.
It's still blue.
All right.
Everything is still blue.
All right. I figured I'd try. Now I see all the chats are popping up here.
Oh my God! There's everybody. Hi. Hello, all of these people. Yes, Mike, I was an idiot. Thank you. That's the one I'm going to acknowledge. Like, yes, I was an idiot. So basically, I think, and if you read the book and you get to know, like, I really set you up to understand why. I never let you go, well, how did you even fall into this option? I set the scene for you with that, hindsight, reflective brain that I have now. I kind of look back and see the things that made me do all the decisions that led me to the next bad decision. Like, for instance, I mean, it's early on in the book. You're not missing anything. Obviously, we got together. Why did I even start dating her? I really just couldn't get a date. Nobody liked me. Everybody hated me. Go eat worms type of deal. So a mutual friend was just like, I think you'd really like her. And I said, all right, dope, I'm in.
Fair enough.
Like, that was probably the gist. There was no like, well, I don't know, maybe I should. Nope. It was just like, put me in the game, coach, throwing the helmet on, like, let's do this. I met her for 3 seconds. I'm in. And then the marriage thing, you'll know why I did everything. Kind of just, it unfolded to the point where as you read, you even feel that sense of no control. Like, there's just this lack of control. There's a feeling of, I don't want to say helplessness, because at any moment you literally can do whatever you want to get out of the situation before it continues to escalate. But I mean, I kind of equate it to, some of those decisions are some of the same things that keep people in like violent relationships and severe domestic violence relationship. Why do you stick around with mean old Ed who's like smacking you around in the trailer park? Why? It's for the same reasons why I stuck around for, damn near a decade.
Yeah, I totally understand. And that makes a lot of sense. I definitely understand. I'm just reading some more of the comments.
I see, my last one that I see is from Susan that's saying I took some blame for the decisions I did. I take blame for every decision I ever did. Yeah. There was nothing that I did, at least within my control, that I didn't consciously make and then look back on 20 years later and go, why? Why did you even? So, for example, she made me join the Army. And I'll use that term very loosely, made me join the Army. Because again, getting into the book, you learn kind of the patterns and everything. You get a lot of this like gaslighting and a lot of this like this physical, mental, and emotional abuse symptoms, but I don't write them as. And then she gaslighted me. I'm just writing it as it happened. And people were like, yeah, that's gaslighting. That's textbook. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but okay. I didn't write it from like an abusive standpoint in that sense. I just wrote it because this is a wild story. And people have been inferring all of these pieces themselves. But just like the decisions that I made were my own, like joining the Army. Nobody made me sign on the dotted line. Nobody forced me, at gunpoint, because it's not allowed. But at the same time, I was told my current line of work was garbage. I'll never go anywhere. I'll never be anything. I need to be in the military because her uncle is in the military and he is prestigious and has all these merits and so on and so forth. Well, now that you put it that way, I was escorted down to the recruiter station and signed on the dotted line, and there I went, which was the worst decision I ever made.
Yeah. So I know I can see the comments because I have it running on my phone next to me, and I don't know why there's a lag on them showing up here. But
that would be a good idea.
I'm going to read you the good ones. The other ones I don't know.
There are good ones?
Susan said, well, at least things turned out well for you. So
yeah, they turned out much better.
Yeah, now you have your lovely wife, your current wife, Audrey. I won't say current, I'll say last best wife, Audrey. She said she's upstairs with the cat. She commented earlier. I assume Iris is a cat because you were talking about the cat earlier.
very much is the cat. That is the cat that would have been shrieking her head off, to be honest. If she didn't already do that earlier, between like 5 and 6:45, she was just like, boom, boom, boom. And I was like, please get it out of your system, or we're gonna have a really bad time. Because all of this would be dead. This would just be destroyed, and it would probably be on fire. It would just be a disaster.
So the next book that you wrote is Spooky Tales and Scary Things. It sounds very similar. No, I'm just kidding.
So my second horror book.
Exactly.
Well, I actually do make that joke of like, well, my second horror book, because really, I mean, it's not horror content. But it's, man, I mean, horror movies, there are some that don't have to be horror. Look at like Single White Female and what's that one? The one that's on like Netflix that I have yet to watch. But they're not horror. It's not Saw. You're not cutting off a foot. You're not being haunted by some lady who had her throat crushed and she climbs out of your closet. It's genuine, just human behavior. And I think that's the scariest stuff out there. But going over to this, I wanted to write stories that I like horror. I like science fiction. Those are kind of my thing. I really enjoy those to read personally, to watch. I love video games centered around it. So I was like, I got a couple of cool stories of things that happened in my life that I bet I can fictionalize. So that's where Spooky Tales and Scary Things came out, which I'm actually working on the sequel of that and just finished writing. So I'm excited. Those are even better than this one. Not saying don't buy this one, but those are, I got a story from my grandparents for the second one. So that's a generational, aged story, aged like fine wine. So that one kind of kicks up the notch just a little bit. But Spooky Tales, I have 3 stories in there. They kind of go into a couple of things that I did. I mean, the one story in there, I think the first story, The General, that took place in 2004, 2005. I was hosting a radio show online. Here we are online again. So we were doing that, and me and my buddy Chuck, he was kind of I used to have a rap career. Shocker. I used to do that. I would have been Lil Dicky before Lil Dicky became Lil Dicky had I have been successful. So I was hosting on this radio station, and it was like 2 other DJs, and this kid messages me out of nowhere on AOL. Shows you how old it is. Pops up, and he's like, "Hey, I need your help." All right, what? He's like, "I'm being haunted by a demon." And we're just on our private like voice chat while the music's playing, just laughing. I mean, what do you do? You're like, get a load of this guy. He's talking about some demon getting him. So we kind of laughed at it, giggled at it, whatnot. Well, at the end of our show, he started talking about it. Like towards the end, he's like, well, it's this guy named the General. He's coming from my soul. I can hear his hellhounds. I can see them now. You have to help me. And I was like, I can't help you, buddy. I don't know what to do. So what do you do other than talk about it on the radio? And that was it. At the end of our session, he messages me on AOL and goes, thank you. Okay, you're welcome. So I'm waiting for a response. And he says, I'm no longer being haunted, but I'm sorry. Again, and he says, well, the curse is transferred from me to you. I'm so sorry. And he blocks me. You know that the old door slam sound? Just and he blocks me. And I'm just like, what? What? Ooh, okay. I'm good. And I must have been, I don't know, in my late teens. Like this was a long time ago. But
yeah. I was just going to say, one of the things that I like about this book is that you have the real, or what really happened, or the real story. You have behind every story, you tell your real life experience that like tied into the story. So you said that's in 2004 is what you say in the book.
Well, that's in, like I said, it's about 04, 05 that we did the song. So the instance itself, I think, was before that. Because I think that actually happened just a little bit before, because me and Chuck actually created the General in 05. Because I actually have the MP3 for anybody that says, you stole that story. I'm like, oh, let me play you this really bad song. And it literally goes through, the song goes through frame for frame, exactly as I verbally describe it, exactly how I write it. It's the fictionalized version, of course, but it's literally the same exact thing. So yes, I have proof. I did this long before Bye Bye Man and stuff existed. But I wanted to kind of put those stories out there. Like I have that, my second story, Demon Dog. I also like to take things that happen to me and give them to other characters that still embody me. I don't know if you got into the second story, Demon Dog, about the little girl named Robin.
I started that one, but then I skipped. I skipped around a little bit. I take breaks. These are scary stories. I don't like to do them all.
Literally the best one. Not saying the other two aren't good, but that's
I promise.
the best one. But the little girl Robin, when I describe the bedroom, I'm literally describing my childhood bedroom. The Winnie the Pooh curtains, the Mickey Mouse light switch, all of this stuff is literally my, like, I'm looking at myself as 6, 7, 8 years old or whatever. That is how I'm visualizing my bedroom as a child. Playing with Jurassic Park toys. Like I made the character very tomboyish, but I had Jurassic Park toys. Still do. They're in the closet. But it's very much still me, but I get to kind of play with different elements, because instead of it being, little boy Harry that's 8 years old, I now give it like a 7 or 8 year old girl, and it's like a father-daughter relationship. There's no mention of mom, so you understand that maybe mom's not in the picture either through death, divorce, or what have you, for some reason. And that's kind of, you just kind of make that inference and keep moving. And you kind of get this like daddy-daughter relationship that builds as you read the book. And then poor little Robin gets plagued by this little like monster demon dog that lives in her closet. Because, all the monsters live in your closet. So it was kind of fun to kind of take what terrified me as a child. I will blame my dad. If he's even watching, I was like looking on the people. If my dad's watching, it's your fault. Because you let me watch Ghostbusters at like 4 years old.
Shh.
Which, I mean, everything in my house is Ghostbusters at this point. But I think that the terror dogs from that movie turned into something in my brain, and that's what chased me around for, God, up until I was maybe 15. It really messed me up. and I would have the same type of dreams. And those same dreams, those fictional things that were brewed up in my brain, became the story that Robin has to endure, essentially in a real life scenario. In a real life
I completely understand, because it was a little bit older. I was like maybe in 8th grade, and we listened to War of the Worlds, and they describe these like giant robots coming across the horizon. And anytime I see like a tall tree line, I just imagine what it would look like with these giant robots towering over them and like trashing down the trees. So that's what I picture. So I understand being like haunted by these images still. Not that I really think that's going to happen. It's just I can just totally picture it. Someone said Demon Dog wants to play with the Jurassic Park toys.
I saw that. Yeah, thanks, Mike. They're in the closet with the Demon Dog, so I'm sure he's been playing with them all this time.
Don't let them destroy them; they could be valuable.
They could be.
So tell us about the next one that I have. The only 3 that I have images of. The third one is the newest one that I knew about last time we spoke.
Oh.
I know you were very excited about it, and it's funny because I feel like you really shift genres. Like you're just dabbling in everything that you can try.
Well, I literally, like that. If you look at my Facebook page, it's like I want to write all the things: horror, comedy, sci-fi, whatever it is. I'm doing it. I want to do all of it. But that's not the case. I'm trying to hone in on. It's not so much that I want to write a comedy book and then I want to write a horror book. I want to try to find that healthy balance of all of it. And I think Fubar, this book series, will be it. It's got comedy. Again, because I was in the Army, I initially started because I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool to write a book about like my time in the Army? But instead of it being like the terrorists, a bunch of monsters show up and just eat everybody. That would be neat. And that's kind of where that evolved from. So I kind of do this like traditional military style book. I call it the Tom Clancy style, where it's, you know, the SWAT team, special forces, whatever, black ops guys that are crashing in through the doors and doing all this tactical cool stuff. I throw that out the window and don't do any of that. And Fubar is full of characters that are essentially your admin guys. They're your desk jockeys. They're not your run and gun infantry people. So you get these guys that aren't essentially the hero. They're more or less, they're just basic people. They're not, you know, I didn't sign up for this type of thing, but you did. But you didn't sign up to fight monsters.
Yeah.
So I kind of take that approach. So the comedy piece comes in with a lot of their banter, a lot of the stuff that I do with the characters. There's a lot of military-isms and a lot of army-isms that I kind of throw in there. So if you are prior military or currently serving, you'll get a lot of stuff that's just like, oh, yeah, I know that feeling. But it's not so over your head where I'm going to lose the average person that's never been there whatsoever. I did that with my beta reads. I made sure that I gave it to people that have never served, might have played Call of Duty, and that's about as far as they got. And they were just like, this book's dope. I loved every second of it. And I was like, I didn't lose you. He's like, nah, was Iraq that nasty? Yeah. Yeah, it was. So it was just kind of just being able to write the comedy piece was the easy part, because that was, you know, you can write funny stuff all day because it's just situational humor. But then I had to take basically a traditional military book, throw some monsters in, and have these guys just try to survive. So that's where the horror type of end comes from it, because people are just getting butchered by these unknown creatures that the main character, Specialist Chantry, dubs the Skitter Critter, because it's such a scary name. The reason behind it is when he initially saw it, it skittered across the ground, and he's like, "It's a Skitter Critter. I'll come up with something better later." Spoiler alert: he doesn't. That's it. That's pretty much in stone, kind of, sort of. It's like, I got nothing better. Like, well, we'll keep trying. We'll keep poking at it.
I like it.
Oh, good.
No, I was just gonna say I like it. It's perfect.
So Skitter Critter is the official terminology for it. And these guys, like I said, they're admin. Essentially, one night the base is just gone. People are gone. The people that are existing, there's these creatures that are just and just tearing them apart. Sorry, bird. There's just these things like eviscerating people. I get semi-graphic, but I don't go into it like it's Saw. But it's enough, like, I think along the lines of Starship Troopers type of, you know, you have Johnny Rico getting one of the big claws through his shoulder, and you're just like, oh, God. But that's all you do. You're not, like, completely just vomiting all over the place because it's like, oh, he's writing so gross. It's enough that you need to know. And it's these characters that are just trying to survive. I think my favorite part about it, aside from the fact that I was able to combine comedy, action, and horror with science fiction, is the fact that most of the people are based loosely on real people that I served with or respect enough in different branches of the service that their likenesses kind of got absorbed into these characters. And in addition to that, some of the conversations had with these people made it into the book. One of the main character and another support character kind of discuss what are these things. That was a real text message exchange between me and one of my buddies. So we just kind of went kind of along with it, and I used that in a conversational form. So it's kind of fun.
I'm looking forward to reading that. I need to get some in stock.
My laptop battery is going to die. Give me 2 seconds to just plug it in.
All right. But all these the first three books, hopefully I'll have at least Fubar, but I know I have the first 2 books that we talked about tonight. I have Tales from an Ex-Husband and Spooky Tales and Scary Things. I have those in the store. Capricos Books. Thanks for joining us. Nope, looks like it's still a blue screen for me. But so I have these in stock at Capricos Books. I'm sorry you can't see me, so it's a little bit awkward. Not that you really need to see me. I'm probably scarier than anything. But
and I'm back on, by the way. I got power. We're alive.
Really? Okay. So as long as your battery is plugged in. So the other thing that I wanted to say was these other 2 books I don't know about. You're going to have to tell me. I know one of them is newer, but I don't know about Brain Dump either. So let me put you back on the screen.
Yay! I'm back again. Look. So Brain Dump actually has been out longer than this book. Or longer than this book. So Brain Dump is, I don't know why it's like my redheaded stepchild book. I never talk about it. I never have copies of it. It exists simply just to exist. So it is, I'll bring it closer. It is a collection of songs, poems, and other moody things. So just for example, I mean, I got stuff that, I was in a band back in high school. So I was writing music. I never really stopped. I have stuff that I wrote while I was in the Army. Just stuff when I was like 9 or 10 years old. I was always writing stuff. It's not a lot of stuff in here. I mean, I'm probably pushing 50 pages, if that, on a good day. But it was just stuff that I was like, well, I don't want it to go to waste. And I'm pretty proud of what I wrote. So I put a couple of them together. Let me see if I can find.
I like that it's literally a brain dump. I mean, that's
all it is just like I found 5 of my spiral bound notebooks and 12 to 13 not word perfect, but works. The free one that used to be on XP.
Yes.
Not only did I have to convert them, I had to convert them and then turn them into book format. So that's probably why I don't advocate this book, because I cheated. I mean, I already wrote it. I've been writing this stuff for 20 plus years. And then I'm just like, copy, paste, book. So I don't know, maybe I view it differently. Maybe I look at, I had to come up with a story and pull it out of the air and really refine these characters. And you need to buy this book because this is a really good book. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But I have stuff in here. I have two, and they're on the same two. They're like side by side. So I'm going to read. This is actually from a section called "Random Musings, Thoughts, and Other Silly Things." The opening really is. I wrote this bit, and frankly, I don't even know what the hell was bouncing through my brain. That's kind of how I open it with a couple more words behind that. But I preface it with, what the hell is that? What? I read some of these and I was like, whoa, they're not love. They're not hate. They're not anger. They're just random stuff. This was the other moody things, I guess, or I don't know where I want to put it. But the first one I wrote, it's called Porcelain Doll. And I wrote that in the back of a up-armored military vehicle, bouncing around in the desert. And I'm just like, pulled out my notepad and I was like, got an idea. Scribble, 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 scribble. Had the big helmet on, bobbling my head around, and came out with this among, I think, 4 things that I wrote at that exact time, like in the back of that truck or out in the field or what have you. So this one's called Porcelain Doll. Porcelain doll, her eyes staring back at me. Porcelain doll, she always has a smile. She will always be beautiful to me. She will forever be in love with me. Porcelain doll will stay forever young. Porcelain doll, her taste always on my tongue. She will always be the way I desire her to be. She will forever be every bit of my fantasy.
Yay!
Where did that come from? Like I reread that. Like I even read it now. I'm just like, I might need help.
A few things came to mind, and I will have to send you links to the things that it made me think of.
Okay.
Various movies that I've seen and things like that. I feel like I probably understand the inspiration. It's definitely a little interesting there. I would probably question if I didn't know you already, and that was the first thing I was reading of yours.
Well, luckily, this is at the tail end of the book. So you've already gotten through a bunch of like ups and downs. I was going to read Lost, but let's see. Yeah, you know what? That'll work because it's short. This one's called Lost. I am lost. I refuse to ask for directions, but I am lost. I'm not sure how I arrived here, nor where to go. For years, wandering the waste in search of something, but now I find myself lost. Yearning and burning with desire for an end goal, I wander aimlessly in the void. Where was my original destination, I wonder? I wander as I wander, finding myself lost more and more. I am lost. I refuse to ask for help, but here I am at a loss. I'm not sure where to go from here or how I arrived here. I've spent years wandering in search of something in the wastes, hoping to be found. I mean, it's just stuff that I wrote. I probably wrote that in my early 20s. I honestly probably have to right click and be like, when did I write this file? Yeah. But I wrote that stuff ages ago, and I went back through it, and a couple of them didn't make the cut, but a lot of stuff I was just like, whew, okay, that is, whew. There's one about my ex in here too. That's a good one. It's called Succubus. So, spoiler alert, that's the one it is. But it's the one, I have this one. This is basically my Amazon and bookstore only one. I just started to actually get it in hand to sell in person because I was like, you know what? It's really not that bad. I actually do like it, but maybe it's my creative brain just going, it's crap. Don't sell that. But I got a handful of them. We'll see how they go. But that's a poetry book in a nutshell. I mean, poetry is poetry. It's a very niche market. You either like to get poetry books or you don't. So that's the other reason why I'm just like, me. People like sci-fi. People like horror. So speaking of horror, oh, there you go. Thank you.
I had your name tag. No, I had your name tag.
I was like, let me hang that up over here.
Let me move it. Sorry. I mean, hopefully people know who they're watching at this point, but
who am I? I don't know. My name's not here. Who am I?
You're lost.
So I am lost. How did I get here? Dude, where's my car? So
Hours of a Crazed Mind.
Oh, now my dad logs on. Okay. I called him out earlier. He needs to rewatch the video. So since people kind of like getting into the mind of people, I this is the book that I've showcased to people. Like, this is what I'm working on. They're like, "Ooh, I want that book. Ooh, I can't wait." They do exactly that every time I tell them. They make that exact same
Spooky.
Conan O'Brien noise. Ooh, I can't wait. Ooh.
Yeah, there we go. Conan
Rub
O'Brien.
their hands together like a bunch of flies. Ooh. So Memoirs of a Crazed Mind. This is still just like the beta cover, but this is more or less what it'll kind of look like. It's just a silhouette of some dude's eyes, and on the back is a blood stain with one sentence that says, "How fragile is the human mind?" So it's written in the style of finding like some lost tapes of a serial killer and a doctor having a little heart-to-heart 101 type of deal, as they do, with the Bundy tapes and all of these other things. And he's just very matter-of-factly going through very by the numbers. So anyway, I killed this guy, and then boom, he was dead. That kind, but it's very in depth. A lot of stuff, like when you watch like serial killer, stories and stuff, you don't really get into the mindset from the killer. And I think I think the American Psycho was the closest that got you into that mindset without actually bringing you into that mindset, because he wasn't sure if he was killing people or not. This guy is absolutely positive and well aware of what he's doing.
Yeah, someone commented, the serial killer book.
The serial killer book. Yeah! So Mike actually had a special privilege. He got the first 5 or 6 chapters, I think. He's had a handful at the beginning of the book, and he used to deal with a lot of crime scene stuff.
Ooh.
And he's seen some things. And the first thing he said to me after reading a particular part of the book, "I don't think I've ever in my entire career seen someone killed with a spoon in such a way." And I said, "Well, I've given you something new, so that's good." So even my wife, she read through it and she's like, "Not bad," which means it must be good because she doesn't like any other thing that I've written. So she said, "Not bad," which means it's the greatest book of all time, and you should get it this fall when it comes out. But it doesn't hold back. I also do this really fun thing of there's that zig and then there's that zag. You're going down the path one way, and you're just like, textbook serial killer, and you're just like, didn't see that coming. This is new. So I made sure I did a lot of that. There's a lot of stuff that, because I'm kind of into like the serial killer stuff, I actually, the last half of me writing the last 2 chapters, Mindhunter season 2 came out. So I was like, ooh, get me in the mood. So I kind of was able to finish the book off while watching Mindhunter, not taking anything from Kemper or any of those guys, but giving them their own giving this guy his own voice. And I say this guy because he's never identified. There's no name, no nothing. It's just a found tape. I was very careful with details and everything. So I think it's a very fun ride. From start to finish, I enjoyed writing it, but it was so taxing on my brain because I had to also stop and write this fun little thing called Toaster Cop, where it's a toaster that gains sentience and becomes a police officer. Because that was the only way I could get out of this, like, and then I took the butcher knife and then I ran it across her body. And then the Toaster Cop, I had to actually kind of give it that old, what was it, that Fox Thursday Night Lineup voice. And then, in Memoirs of a Crazed Mind, the killer corners 3 people. And on Toaster Cop to follow, he gets himself in a heap of trouble.
Well, I'll hop in and I'll say, since I know, since you said you're into the This is not quite serial killer, but next Tuesday, we're doing our book club, and I'll be interviewing similar style. Hopefully my camera will actually work, but Bruce Goldfarb, who is the assistant to the chief medical examiner in Baltimore. I got a tour of his office. We were testing this setup today. He wanted to see if he could use his phone and see how it works. So then he gave me a tour of, he's actually in charge of the nutshell studies. So I don't know how much you know about them, but he wrote a book called 18 Tiny Deaths, which is about the nutshell studies. And that is Frances Glessner Lee, I can't say it. And she created these tiny dioramas of crime scenes, and they're still used today. So she created them. I don't remember the timeline off the top of my head, but she created them and they're still used today, and they're in the chief medical examiner's office in Baltimore. So you'll have to come with us when we have our field trip to go see them, because I feel like you'll really appreciate it and get some ideas maybe.
Oh yeah,
for a second book, for a second found tape book.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, I got a couple of things that are still in the works too. So I don't ever want to have that writer's block moment where I don't have anything to release and I'm just sitting there going, crap. I have nothing. And then a year passes, and then 2 years pass, and I'm still like, crap, I have nothing. So this is going to be in fall. So I have that, but I also have Spooky Tales 2. Working title is Spooky Tales 2 Electric Boogaloo. That is not going to be its name, but that's what it says on my Microsoft Word right now. And it makes me giggle every time, and I refuse to delete it.
Whatever inspires you, whatever keeps you writing.
I actually stopped I was halfway through the first story and then went back into it. I loaded it back up 6, 7, 8 months later, completely forgot that I wrote Spooky Tales 2 Electric Boogaloo. And I about peed myself laughing so hard. I was like, Spooky, you idiot. And then just scrolled away from it and just started writing. But I have that coming up. I have Fubar 2 that I'm working on. Each of their titles will also be military terminology. So the first one's Blackout. The second one that I'm working on is called Out of Element. And that's going to be very much, the titles really echo the content that you'll get into. They're going to be in over their heads, obviously. You know, there's a sequel, so somebody survives. So they're in over their heads. And then we explore that. I'm also working on what I hope is going to be my my giant masterpiece, which I'm writing a book about a disaster scenario where the world ends. Probably poor timing right now.
Oh,
so
please.
By the time I'm done, this whole thing will have blown over.
Yes. Well,
and then I'll release it.
But one of my favorite things about the this whole situation as a bookseller is, of course, there's been a mixing of two books. Dean Koontz's Eyes of Darkness, I think it's called. You've probably seen this thing.